Welcome today to
Thank you.
the sharing that Maya and Anshul are going to be offering us right around their work, and a little bit about their work. So together, they are known. We know them as Holland Perspectives. Um, and since I've met them, and before I've met them, I know that they have been working really hard on strengthening the systems thinking ecosystem in India, right? And so I really am, what's the word, honored, and we're honored as Illuminate to be able to support that work, right? The work of envisioning a world where stories of development are based upon a holistic paradigm, where people are aspiring to do the right things. And so, welcome everyone. Welcome to Maya, to Anshul, all yours.
Thanks, Louis. Thanks for that beautiful introduction. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone once again. Before we start today's offering, I would like to set some intentions for the session today. And I'd like to do that by first expressing our gratitude. I'm going to use or I'm going to quote one of the most revered verses in the Bhagavad Gita to do so. It reads, Karmanye vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalahetur bhurma te sangotstava karmani. Uh, Quite literally, the verse means that we should do our duties without expecting favorable results of our choice. Rather, we should accept all results as the grace of the divine. And it also says, at the same time, do not be attached to inactivity or not doing work. So I will unpack that a bit for all of us. This verse attempts to make us understand that we have the ability to put our best efforts in all the endeavors that we choose to take up. But we cannot pick the results that we wish to achieve from that work. That is not to say that we should not aim for good results from our work. No. But it tells us that we must be fully prepared and plan for unexpected failures or unexpected outcomes, rather. In other words, becoming emotionally attached to the results while we plan out and do our work can instill the fear of failure, and that's the biggest impediment to success. Therefore, the Lord says that perform all duties with a detached attachment, and we can do this by cultivating an attitude of gratitude. So, this verse sums up that whatever we do, be grateful for what you are and see your actions as a way to expressing that gratitude towards the divine. And so it is with this gratitude and reverence that we set out on a brave voyage with colleagues from Ashoka, India, and with 10 wonderful Indian social entrepreneurs. We called it Systems Panorama. Wonder why? Okay, I'll tell you why. So, most of us here are aware that systems thinking as an approach deals with a holistic lens to becoming aware of emergent behavior arising because of interactions between various parts of a system or systems. Panorama, on its part, refers to an unobstructed or complete view of an area from every direction. So we put the two together because we wanted the aspect of having a broad spectrum view with being able to look at, zoom in and delve into the interconnections of the parts that make up the whole at the same time. And so, thus began the voyage of systems panorama. Lastly, as part of the intention setting, I would also like to state that As Illuminate Network luminaries, this program is our contribution towards catalyzing new systems change communities in India and nourishing the communities of practice cultivated by the Illuminate Network. Having stated those intentions up front, I thank each one of you again today for joining us, and we present to you Cultivating Ecotones for Systems Change. So, before getting into the details, I would like to start by sharing a brief context as to how we got to titling this digital offering Cultivating Ecotones for Systems Change. So, when we started, uh, I mean, through conversations of being in the social impact space for a few years and having worked with many social change makers in the past as well, we realized that there are so many people who we can call heroes under the radar in the Indian context who have been trying to shift the system towards a more equitable, a more sustainable state through the work that they do. However, one of the things that we noticed about their style of working is that they have a certain affinity about uh, scaling impact by increasing the number of people or the number of communities reached at the shortest possible time. And though that's important, uh, what they were not being able to do as a result is to look at the policies or the laws, the institutions that held the system in place, and definitely not being able to look at power structures, cultural beliefs, and those kind of relationships, the mental models or the attitudes that people in the system had while perceiving the complex problems that were being dealt with. And that's actually what we were trying to introduce to them, because we do believe that that kind of a lens is what the social entrepreneurs needed to make their work truly transformational and reach out to a larger network of people. So our proposition was that we'll facilitate awareness of systems change tools and frameworks in a cohort based setting. We were very intentional about that. And so we designed it that way so that it is participant led, and we were able to quite successfully widen the horizon of the cohort in terms of the possibilities that they saw, and we were able to equip them with some tools to facilitate their transition from what I'd like to call being ignorant about systems to becoming more mindful. Uh, I mean, I would also like to share some of the things that participants shared and they realized. So, for instance, and I'm quoting some of the things that we've heard them say during our sessions. So, one of the participants said that there is so much to learn and unlearn from other people's journey. And some, in fact, multiple people had to share how, different issues and even the underlying causes of those issues seem to be interrelated. So these were aha moments because we were getting closer to the goal that we had set out to achieve. Uh, but of course, I would also like to say, because it's best to state directly from the horse's mouth. So those are a couple of testimonials that we also got for the program after it was complete. So somebody who said that it helped me understand the limitation of individuals' contributions to solving a problem, and thus the need for partnerships and networking. While yet another social entrepreneur had to say that this program has been great to magnify the impact potential of our idea and see it beyond the lens of our organization. So, in some ways, it's been a great experience. Anshul, could we move to the next slide, please? So, definitely, we would say that we were successful in getting a certain mindfulness about systems, even they're introducing systems jargon into their vocabulary, and they could see interconnections. I also have the privilege of a couple of people from the cohort joining us, so please feel free to interrupt or tell me, call me out if you disagree. uh, but yeah, we were very happy with being able to introduce systems thinking to the social impact space. However, we also reflected on what we had done as a process, and also some of the things that were shared and our own learnings and reflections. So one of the key things that this program did was we were able to then look at how I mean, of course, they transitioned from systems ignorance to systems mindfulness, but they also understood the notion of systems relationality, and we could introduce the complexity and idea of pluriverse to them. And this really was a stepping stone for us to be able to build an understanding of systems change niches. So, I mean, yeah, with that understanding, we really wanted to take this program further. Uh, and I would invite Anshul now to talk about why. I mean, I already established how we had created the understanding of systems uh, mindfulness, but why ecotone is something that I'd invite Anshul to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya, for the wonderful introduction and setting the tone. Um, I think I would start with saying, the program, the concept of ecotone and the concept of this transition from systems ignorance to mindfulness was sort of an afterthought, which was realized as a provocation during the process when we were following, and after, many reflections within the team, that you know, uh, we have tried to break a barrier which usually the systems entrepreneur find themselves in. I mean, where uh, sometimes it feels for them to, the systems is too complicated, and understanding it will require a lot of energy and effort, and also it will require a lot of times and all those things, and that energy, that initial inertia is something that we need to break. And then through this 5-week long duration program, we were able to break that transition and break that inertia, and then we were able to move them, from the state of ignorance to a state of mindfulness. And it was very necessary, since as you see in the diagram, the state transition is not very linear path. People tend to fall back to their initial state, and that's where you need a regular support and the regular constant effort and constant space where they can be part of, where they can understand this concept, and where they can experiment different things. That's why we were trying to understand how this can happen. Later, when we were exploring, like when that in it, there might be many people who might be involving in this kind of a processes. And then if we look at the typical transition of a systems entrepreneur working in a niche to a larger ecosystem, we have adopted this framework of explaining the concept of ecotone through this framework. Why do we need the ecostone, and where the ecotone as a concept fits into our narrative, using this framework of transition and theory, which if you are aware, if people who are not aware about, I'll just give a brief intro about this. So we have different niche and then we have different regimes which are constructed of cultural, infrastructural, technological, and other policy related elements. And then above that, we have the landscape under which all these things will function. And niche are some local level phenomena, local level initiative that that happen in silos, or they are trying to change the status quo by a subversion of the institutional capacities, and they are trying to merge into the social regimes, and then ultimately trying to become into the landscape. But what happens when these entrepreneur work, they try to, they are working as a niche, but when it comes to transition from niche to regime, there is this whole energy barrier that we need to break. And it's not just one barrier where we are saying uh, you know state of ignorance to state of mindfulness, but there are many such barriers that can happen. So what is the way of breaking those barriers? How we can make these niche to sustain? How do we make these niche to multiply with each other? And how do we ensure that these niche doesn't fade away over a period of time? That's where the concept of ecostone comes into the picture. That's where the concept of a space that comes into the picture, where we have to create an space around these niche, which can help into breaking those barrier of transition process, as well as uh, 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 which is very intentional, to propagating those niche. Now, ecotone word as such is derived from a very natural phenomena that happens when two ecosystems in between the two ecosystems. So, and it we see it a lot around us. I mean, we live in Mumbai, so that word was inspired from there. So Mumbai is a region where you have two ecosystems. One is the land ecosystem, and the other is the terrestrial ecosystem and the aqua ecosystem, the coastal region. So where these two ecosystems meet, there is this region that emerged, which is called mangroves, which is a type of a ecotone which facilitate the transition between terrestrial ecosystem to marine ecosystem, and marine ecosystem to terrestrial ecosystem. That's where we wanted to bring this idea of ecotone, that can these ecotones help us to propagate those niches? Can these ecotone help us to navigate the transitioning process, and can break those barrier of transitioning? Having said that, we were also trying to now, reflecting and looking at how those ecosystems might function. What might be some function of these ecotones? From our experience, we realized that if you have to create the ecosystem, the core functional capabilities of the ecosystem it needs to provide a space for cross pollination among the among the participant of that ecotone, so those social entrepreneurs. It need to provide a space where they can be exploration of multiple niches. And it also provide a space where you can create a buffer of different niches, so that people can uh, people can inhabitedly share their feelings, and then share their thought process with each other. With these capabilities, it will help us, you know, creating that fertile ground for that niche propagation by, challenging those existing threshold. Because when we have this cross pollination of ideas, we have this space where, you have the fertile land for cross niches, and where a lot of niche are emerging. It will increase the momentum of transitioning process of these niche to into the design, and that will also unlock a greater uh, potential for untapped resources, which can feed back into, fertilizing these niche again. So that was the whole hypothesis that we are carrying here, and some of the reflection while we talk about the niche, that how these ecotones can help us in, idea of pluriversal into the system change, the idea of how it can help as a test bed for experimenting with the innovative niche, and also how it can help as a transition from one regime to from a niche to regime position. Now, having said that, I mean, we will also reflect back on, and I would invite Maya again to reflect back on this exercise. How do we were able to cultivate that ecosystem? I mean, you need to have those different elements that need to bring together to cultivate that ecotones. And I would invite Maya to, walk us through that. What are the some elements that we experimented with while cultivating this ecotones, and that can help many system change practitioners who are trying to create this kind of a space. Over to you, Maya.
Thank you. Thanks, Anshul. So I would like to give some examples from how we designed the Systems Panorama program while talking about these elements. So, of course, we had certain rituals in each session. So, to start off with, I would like to reiterate that it was a cohort-based learning program where we had both synchronous elements as well as asynchronous elements. So, the synchronous part was when three of us facilitators, Anshul and me, and also we had our colleague Akash from Ashoka. We used to facilitate sessions each week. They were 2-hour sessions, and we used to build a conceptual understanding of a systems tool or a framework. This was for the whole of August 2022. So there were 5 sessions. So there would be, the facilitation that happens in plenary. And then we had also, based on common interests and based on the problems that the social entrepreneurs were dealing with, we had also broken them down into triads for peer learning. So then that would provide for the asynchronous learning where anything that was facilitated or explained, they had the time to discuss in breakout rooms and also apply to their own organizational problem and get a better understanding. So, and then we had rituals of check-in, check-out. Um, we had made sure that the space was held with a lot of empathy because uh, given that we still have episodes of COVID, there were people who were unwell on certain sessions. And so they had the support of their triad team members and us as facilitators. There was a lot of care that we built into the program. People also, like I said, because these are social entrepreneurs who are at a decision making position, they had to travel a lot, they had work related commitments. So there was this autonomy that they could skip certain sessions if they had to. But of course, with the responsibility lying on them to catch up on the session that just went by. Uh, and drawing from autonomy naturally is a sense of trust, a sense of ownership that was there in the peer groups. And we also heard from a lot of participants regarding that. And last but certainly not the least, we had a lot of fun. So we also saw what people's talents were. Somebody would sing for us, somebody would recite a poem, or maybe somebody rapped for us, I remember. And so it was this space where the social entrepreneurs and us as facilitators could learn and unlearn. We could shed our inhibitions and actually explore how the interactions between us um, mold us, they shape us, and what are the commonalities and the differences. So that was our idea of cultivating this ecotone. But Anshul, do you want to move to the next slide, please? We also think that this is a brilliant opportunity for us to invite uh, you as participants uh, in this effort, in this endeavor with us, and we would like to hear from you as to what are some other elements that we could look at to cultivate this ecotone. So we will pause here for a bit because we've been doing a lot of the talking, and invite one of you to probably share.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated, uh, by the elements, and really much more in like how you were able to um harvest those, like see that those were elements that really cultivated an ecotone. Um, yeah, there they are. There we go. I wonder, Care, what did that look like? What did it mean for your work? Because that's something that I think I'm having a lot of conversations about, and I'd love to know
Mhm.
what were the, I guess, if care was a strategy, then what were the tactics?
Great. Thanks, Louis, for the question.
Yeah.
So I'll take a stab at that, and then also welcome Anshul to add. So like I said, we were very intentional and conscious of the fact that we were dealing with human beings, and not just entrepreneurs. So I'm just giving you instances. So there was this one person who had some personal commitment, due to which, I mean, she used to communicate with us, but she was not being able to attend some of the sessions. So of course, on her part, for the trust and accountability, she had her colleague attend. But then, because it was a health crisis that she had to attend in her family, we would, I mean, other than the sessions that we had for the plenary, we used to spend an hourly session besides that for her to bring her up to speed, because she was working in the space of mental well-being, and we thought that that was very important in today's day and age. So we would accommodate her separately, and then, she really felt, I mean, she really cherished that, because she could then understand, and she was not missing out on what the others were learning in the space because of her personal issues. And another example that I could probably think of is that, in terms of, so we had these 10 entrepreneurs, but obviously not all of them had scaled impact to the same level, or had spent that those many years in social entrepreneurship, or in the programs that they had designed. So they were at different levels. So definitely there has been a delta in terms of learning, or in terms of systems mindfulness for everybody. But somebody is probably at the level of just becoming aware of it conceptually, or just being able to look at the root causes of the problems that they're dealing with, while somebody else is talking at the level of, shifting roles from a direct implementer to an enabler of the ecosystem. Or I want to be able to see how global interventions are mapped to the local intervention that I'm designing. So not everybody is at the same level. So, but we still made sure that everybody is able to take something worthwhile from this whole program. So nobody felt left out. Nobody felt that I don't get it. So that's also an element of care as I see it. But happy to hear Anshul as well.
Thanks, Maya. Um, Louis, I would say the things are, I mean, the care and all these trust. I think we didn't plan for this thing. It was more of a intentional that we wanted to do it, but we didn't try to force it, but we let it emerge by engaging into certain practices. So let's say these rituals or these fun elements, it itself try to push us towards those elements of care where people, these all elements are also interrelated in a way that one lead to another. So having setting up those rituals, having those fun elements, having giving those autonomies, building can build those trust, and it itself develop the caring for each other, where people, if someone is lacking behind, they try to, as Maya was mentioning, they try to care for them, and they try to bring from their perspective. And empathy plays a lot of role, where where as a facilitator for us has to step down from a position where we know things to a position where we also are part of this cohort as a one of the learner, where we have to learn from them. So it's not a one way the facilitation driven process, but it's just more of a participant driven process, where everyone is a learner and try to build this community and nurture the space itself. So that's where, I mean, those are the things that happen organically, and where you don't have to, I mean, for us at least, we didn't plan as such many things about it. And it was some reflection during that reflection process that we realized that these are the things that actually happened during the process. Happy to hear some other thoughts as well.
Well, in the chat, there's a comment from Altanet asking, is it possible to share examples of the common ground that was not known between participants by the end of the sessions?
Yeah. I mean, I can take that, and I mean, something that Maya was alluding to. So as Maya was saying, we had participants who were into their journey of social change, journey of social entrepreneurship, was at a different levels of, in terms of, experience, as well as the kind of skill that they were doing and the kind of intervention that they are doing. So we had a people who just started doing it. We had a people who had just the idea, but they didn't explore that, what are the different things that can be done on ground. We had a people who actually was doing a lot of skill. So that was a different kind of grounds, I mean, in terms of the expertise as well as their lived experience, that was not common, and was not known to them. And that's where the whole process, those first few sessions where we just explore in the peer session, that how the system looks like to you, how the system look like to you, that kind of a questioning actually help us to bring all them in a common ground. Maya, if you have anything to add to this.
Sure, thanks, Anshul. So, yeah, that's a great question. And the way I'd answer that is there were some common themes. Those were aha moments for the participants. And so I would think that those are common things that they were not aware of before the program. One of the things was like the causes of different problems. Let's say somebody was dealing with implementing a emotional learning curriculum in government schools in North India, while somebody else was looking at building capabilities of women to become change makers, where they were also looking at capacity building of women in health, in education, and so on. And so when they had these breakout rooms, one common thread would be that we didn't know that though we were dealing with different issues, the underlying root causes were same or similar. And so, it made them natural allies, and they could see how they could collaborate with each other. And we've also had participants share, for instance, somebody who's a movement therapist in the education space had shared in the breakout room how the person doing mental well-being could use movement-based therapy in their sessions. And another classic example in terms of social inclusion was that one of the social entrepreneurs was looking at working with transgender communities and empowering them, giving them livelihood opportunities, while the other was looking at um, social inclusion of children with disabilities, because she runs a school for special needs children. And so there, in terms of the power structures or the cultural beliefs that held that system in place, they could see a lot of commonalities. And then I think the most significant change has been in terms of them stating again and again that we were thinking about what I could do as an individual or my organization could do with X number of employees. But you have given us a lens to look at. It's not about just us, but it's about who we can strategically collaborate with and what we can do, what is our where we can leverage our resources and where we can also partner strategically with others to bring in systemic change. So that is something that at least most or maybe 90% of the cohort was not aware of before this program. And I do hope we are able to answer your question. Hey, Louis, can I put you on the spot and just out of curiosity, because of the wonderful work that you do, ask you if we are missing out on some of the elements? Maybe what is it that you would add to the list?
You can always put me on the spot. That's our relationship we have. I don't know what's missing, right? Because all right, so I thought about responsibility, right?
Okay.
And what the context of that is that I experience going into many spaces as a participant, as a facilitator, and the space itself has all those elements, right? There's trust, there's autonomy, right? Like there's that type of norms that are created, that type of container is held throughout the space. And but then it feels like there's like a disconnect that happens once we're like away or out of that formation or away from that like working group. And so I don't know if that's the right word, responsibility, and I don't know, and maybe it's covered by one of the elements that are there, like trust. I'm wondering, what's the element that encourages, motivates, holds people accountable to the work, right, that they're doing, and that they're aiming to do, given this, this information, this content, this knowledge that they've gained, right? And so what's the element? And maybe it's already there, maybe it's not. So you tell me, right? Like what element helped to do that, or maybe there wasn't another that element, or maybe it wasn't named yet.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Thanks for that observation. Because, I mean, while we've also been talking about a lot of what changed, I think this is a great opportunity to also talk about what we would have liked to do better. And in terms of accountability, um, like I said, though we had designed the program for a lot of peer group interaction and learning, we were also cognizant of the fact that people had to travel, somebody was unwell, somebody had to skip some sessions. So what that did was that there were instances where the triad groups or the small peer groups did really well and supported each other, while there were a few others which at times had to suffer because of one or two of the entrepreneurs being absent on different sessions, and so the learning as a group suffered. So one of the learnings that for us from having piloted this program for the first time is that, like you said, how do you make people accountable without having to impose that on them or having to tell them that you will have to attend all the sessions? Because at the end of the day, anything that's imposed is not going to bring us that outcome that we desire, right? So what are those motivations uh, that can, and and, this is an ongoing conversation. So people might have different motivations, but then that is a exploration that we are sitting with at the end of this program, that what incentivizes or what intrinsically motivates different people, and so how do you build that into the design if we were to do another cohort of this program, is something which I thought we should also name now, because not everything is hunky dory, right? And it's I think as much as it's important to share the successes of a program, it's equally or even more important to share the failures or the areas of improvement that we learned. So yeah, thanks for that question.
Thanks for putting me on the spot.
So, I mean, while we wait, just to kind of summarize, right? We started off with something uh, as a pilot just to make people aware, but it's been an insight that the next time around, how we can uh, intentionally create that ecotone, as Anshul was explaining, where we will where innovative niches can sprout out of there, and then given that we are also scaffolding their learning in terms of how do they build their community of practice, network with others, we think we are creating a field where more niches can then converge into regimes and inform the landscape, which is the institutional level changes. So in that sense, what we see is that maybe if there is a round two, we would like to uh, consciously make sure that uh, these social entrepreneurs, but even more of them who have similar experience of creating impact at scale, are able to become deliberate practitioners of systems thinking. And I mean, they're already prosumers. We know how to create prosumers of systems thinking in the social impact space, but we are going to be looking more towards creating deliberate practitioners. So that in a nutshell is where we are at the moment. Anshul, do you want to add anything?
I think Maya, you covered beautifully, and I mean, my bit would be to say that there are these. I see it as a state transition from one stage to another state where this whole cohort or a whole community is transitioning, and there are all these transition that needs to be facilitated in a space that provide them this autonomy, the trust and the rituals, and I mean that has this all the elements together which can facilitate all these transitions so that those niche doesn't fade. Those social entrepreneurs that are working in very silos, and I mean those are creating a really ground impact, can deeper their practices and can also explore what are the different niche that they can create in terms of experimenting around experimenting with lot of ideas, lot of partnerships and the collaboration. And for doing that we need to have these spaces to be spread out globally, as well as on a and on a temporal scale as well, where you can have these frequent um, conversation, frequent discussions where participants become in that momentum. And I will tie it back to Louis' point of responsibility. So I think and that can happen when we have the shared responsibility, because individual responsibility too, we have to think from a peer responsibility or a shared responsibility, where even if one person or one individual is sensing of unresponsibility towards it, the peer as a whole can move in a direction so that that person can also become part of that whole change process. Um, so I think that that's what is a sense of we are trying to convey, that we need to have these spaces uh, as in numbers. I mean in the numbers, as well as in the depth of the discussions, as well as in the types of things that are being experimented into these spaces.
My name is Atanan, and if I could just share a comment, is that I love the slides and everything that you guys presented today. And my background is in operations. And, a lot of people have taken the term social enterprise and social entrepreneur as another opportunity for the profitability moment. And they forget about the whole purpose is that it's for humanity, profit for humanity in every form. And I love the way you have segmented it down into the niches and letting people know that you can do this in a way that impacts humanity without being segregated. And it's always that norm for us to follow the path of segregation. But even in that, can you go back to that, maybe the second slide? Yes, okay, no, third one then. I love this slide, and I didn't even know that it was the Ecotone space until you made that in the beginning, but I honed in on that section because it's that opportunity for everyone to kind of come together and show a little bit about who they are, and then delve into all of those implications and connections and maybe misconnections. So I just love what you're doing and the way you're presenting this and how it does give another type of framework to profit humanity. I just wanted to share that with you guys, just from an operational perspective.
Thank you so much, and thank you articulating it very beautifully. It's so encouraging for us as well. Maya, do you have anything?
No, I have nothing in particular. Louis.
Me neither. How are you feeling? I feel very nourished on that. Thank you for that. That point. I really do appreciate Maya and Anshul's I'll say clarity in this work. That's one of the things that I definitely, out of the many things I appreciate about y'all. Yeah, I mean, and so here at Illuminate, we are continuing to look to support this work, to support folks that are doing this work. And Antoinette, I've been meaning to reach out to you, to connect with you more, a little bit more around your own work. I would say Maya and Anshul, maybe you can close us out with this, right? Like, so you share with us a lot about the work that you've been doing with these group of folks. For you, how do you feel? What have you learned about yourself as a social entrepreneur, right? As a social innovator, what would you say you've learned about yourself and your practice through this? And then we can close out.
Anshul, do you want to go first while I still gather my thoughts?
Sure, Maya. That's always been a tough question. I mean, when we when we talk from others' perspective, what they learn, but then you have to reflect on what we learn. I mean, it's a very interesting thing. I mean, I'll talk personally for me as a facilitator of this whole process and trying to ideate this whole idea of cultivating space. One of the change or one of the learning that I would see is to understand that there are different, I mean, the idea of moving from singularity to plural verse and idea of standardization to diversification was something that was uh, a very big change in terms of my thought process, because I mean, often when we talk about scale and from an operational point of view, we tend to think more about when you have a single solution, just let's try to optimize it and then try to standardize certain things and then try to scale it. But in that process, you are missing out on a lot of other potential uh, potential small scale innovation that may be groundbreaking. So you need to have a balance between over standardization to this idea of pluriverse, where you have to you have to at least try to experiment with this idea of that how these different experiment, whether they are scalable or whether it's not, can sustain for a longer duration of a time. That was a one question as well as sort of a learning for me out of this whole thing. Moving from singularity to pluriverse and sustaining the whole uh, one idea and one uh, niche to a longer duration of time than saying that after a 5 year, if it's not working, it failed. It's not failed. It might be it's not its right time to flourish. Uh, so those are the things. I think that is the one major thing for me from that learning space. The second learning I would say was in terms of experimenting with the creating of this space. That what does it take to create this space? It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of humility from your side to cultivate that space that you want to in terms of uh, which is not driven by you, but it's driven by the people who are holding the space. So those are the two things I would say was a major learning from me as a part of this whole process.
Amazing. Thanks, Sanchul. So, yeah, I mean, I mirror some of what you just said at the end, right? So, one thing that I've learned is to play each day by the audience. So, um, this kind of a program where we were looking at participants who were either novices or completely new to systems thinking and systems language. We have not used any jargon or anything like that. In fact, we scaffolded their learning by going from using jargon that's closer to social impact, like scale, like process outcomes, and then we introduce the finer nuances of systems, because like in education they say, go from the near to the far. Don't just introduce and jump in with a lot of jargon, because then it'll be rejected. That's and so as an entrepreneur, I've learned to adapt. And like Anshul said, we've been into this business of trying to develop the systems thinking ecosystem in India. We didn't know at the moment in 2019 what we were signing up for, and it's been a very sometimes painful and sometimes very enriching roller coaster ride for the both of us. So, but what it has done is we know which is the audience that we are dealing with, and hence we can mold ourselves and the way we approach complexity in that audience. So for instance, when we are part of the Illuminate network learning sessions with our cohort members, we can talk about emergence, we can talk about self-organization, because we know that everybody is understanding it the same way. But when we are into a totally different set of stakeholders, we have learned to repack or maybe use words that are closer to their business as usual, and then still try to pass on the point that we want to. So that's, and I didn't know that we had that capability. Maybe we didn't, and we have developed it over a period of time. So it's been a lot of learning and leaning in our own discomfort of not knowing everything. That's what I'd say I have developed as a social entrepreneur, Louis.
All right. Any way you'd like to close us?
Uh, I mean, it's, you know, sharing what we are trying to do with somebody, and then they're getting it, or they're saying that, this is important work, is always a boost of energy for us, because like we said, we are struggling with something that's against the dominant paradigm, if I were to use those words. So I would just like to once again express our gratitude, and thank you so much for coming to here today, being present uh, as a whole, and then also giving us an opportunity to share that our exploration as part of this digital offering. So thank you so much, Anshul.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking I would recite that poem, that Akash. I mean, that's the poem that one of our colleague Akash, who was part of Ashoka, recited during starting of this cohort, and that's where we kept the name of this whole space as a brave space, and which gives a sense that why it's a brave space. I'll just recite that poem, and we can close this time. So its poem name is an invitation to brave space. Together we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in real world. We all carry scars. We all have caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side.
Yes,
So
we
with
will.
that, so I think with that poem, I'd say it was lovely to sharing our experiences and thoughts with all of you, and would love to doing so in future as well, and continuing this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.